I've never tried NBA League Pass, so
Right.
I'm just kind of curious to see what that is.
Yeah, even just to like catch. I'm sure they have like recap shows and what, or even just easy ways to like
historic stuff on there too.
They do.
Oh yeah.
No, they
nice.
It's actually like a good like
the WWE network of
basically.
It's good in terms of like what you get for it, but like at the same time, it is like also it is a lot. Of money.
Yeah, you got to be a big fan or like into fantasy sports,
or
like, that bundle seems like the perfect way to do it. You're like, okay, I'll save a few bucks in the process. I want the game anyways.
Yep.
I get a few extra goodies with it too.
Pre-order bonuses, otherwise in the game.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, okay, I just get all my basketball fix in one transaction.
Yep.
Basically.
That's the way to do it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And we are back, as always, to talk about some video games. And I feel like it's been a little while since we had the whole trio together. Although, actually, I feel like the last session we had. But I just feel like our schedule with me, like, preparing for moving and just, like, all of our schedules, like, Randall's had some family in town. We've just been a little out of whack. So it feels like it's been a while since we've, like, all sat down and, like, had some time to fully, properly play some games and have some stuff to talk about. And I know John's been spending some time digging into not the latest release from Nintendo, which by the time this episode comes out, and neither of them will be the latest release from Nintendo, but my brain, I even wrote it down on the notes, like with a question mark before I talked to you, John, the other day when you stopped by to bring over that bubble wrap for my moving situation. I was like, I bet you John has Splatoon, and he just hasn't mentioned it yet, Splatoon 3, and he's like waiting to talk about it, and he's like, hasn't even picked it up yet. So I was like, oh man, I can't believe John's not on the Splatoon train right off the bat, but he has been on a different Nintendo train, and I guess you can share some thoughts on Splatoon too if you want to. But I don't know, dumb way to lead into it.
Just I do actually have some opinions on, like, I saw some people posting about Nintendo, charging for an online service and a premium like online like tiers, but they still make Splatoon run peer to peer on online. Yeah. So like you are dependent on your like teammates' Wi-Fi connection, which is
I saw people complaining about getting like booted out of games all the time. I didn't realize there was like, I thought it was just just a new game, but I didn't realize that was
cheapo, like not investing in servers and the infrastructure necessary.
And not to mention, I think you mentioned too, John, when I asked you if you had picked it up, like it is kind of like when these games are like kind of like only alive while they have a live community playing them. And Splatoon's big enough where there is going to be a community of people playing, probably still even two and whatnot. But like, it's still just like, man, it's like as soon as you don't have friends, like if I knew that I had 5 or 6 or 4 friends that were going to be playing this all the time, I'd be like, okay, I'd probably pick it up. And even if I got a month out of enjoyment, but yeah, even thinking about Mario Strikers and golf and like those games that I've gotten almost zero mileage out of, and even tennis that I liked and I got not a whole lot of mileage out of, partially because they it's like they're trying to get more mileage out of each individual game, but in turn, at least for me, it's like ending up being like I'm just not even really playing them. I'm just like, oh, okay, I played it once and that's that.
Same, and especially with Nintendo in particular, like they just will like pull the plug at the soonest possible moment of just being like, well, you can't play this game online anymore.
Servers are offline. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a great series that I've enjoyed a lot, and I might pick it up at some point, but for right now, I'm not. So
ditto.
I'm going to be playing my online games elsewhere. But my game that I am playing a ton of that I've been itching to talk with Randall about is Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which was a game that I basically was not going to pick up, but did on a whim when I think I was looking for a Nintendo 64 controller for the Nintendo Switch Online.
That. Yeah, that's great.
And then I was like, oh yeah, this game came out. I really like the first 3 games in the Chronicles series. I should probably pick this up, I guess. And then when I picked it up, I was like, well, I guess I should probably finish 2 then. and I went back and did, and
that's impressive in and of itself.
It really is.
Previous episode, I was very close to the finish line. There was really no reason why I just stopped, other than that's what I do.
That's
I
just
just
what
stop
happens.
playing games when I'm 90% through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but still, just to be able to go up and like to pick up where you left off, that's still pretty impressive to like be able to kind of remember what you're doing. I guess if you're on the home stretch, you know, it might not have been much to parse, but
yeah, and like I think the actually a strength of the Xenoblade Chronicles games is that they are very good at like giving you a waypoint or, you know, a summary of like what you're doing and where you need to go next, and being very clear and explicit about what the next step is.
Modern RPGs have gotten so much better at that sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, even when we talked about Xenoblade 2 on the podcast, I do remember thinking like, man, you can like just check the objective you want. It's like very clearly, like I obviously didn't play much of that game, but it was like, man, I like never felt lost or like confused or just overwhelmed.
Yeah. And I have in the years that we've been doing this podcast, I have changed as a person, because a core thing about when I was playing 2 in our previous episodes was I was complaining about the frequency and length of the cutscenes.
Yepers. Me too.
I have changed as a person, or at least I think I've managed my expectations of this series.
Or do your bullshit tolerance just go way up over
I
time?
don't know. Honestly, also, I think part of it is the fact that, like, I watched this, maybe just from my own personal experience, but I watched Twin Peaks in the time between playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3.
The super, like, melodramatic, almost cheesy.
And, like, difficult to follow, and kind of just, like, trying to, like, you know, be, like, taking a step back and letting things wash over you.
Yeah.
And not necessarily, like, trying to be, like, make literal sense out of every single thing that's happening.
Yeah.
And just being like, okay, this scene is trying to establish a mood rather than like trying to make sense of like every single thing that's happening. So like what in like especially playing the final moments of 2, which are a bonkers ride.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. I buy that.
Even what I saw of you, we talked about this a little bit when you gave like some first impressions about 3, but even just like the one like kind of sequence of battles and whatever that I saw you play was just like, what the hell is happening? This is in 3, but just like, this is crazy. And you were like, I was like, this feels like a climax. Like you got to be getting close to like some kind of, and you're just like, no, this is just like the end of every kind of like like beat. Arc or
every story
game.
Beat.
Yeah.
Like this is every 30 minutes something this high stakes and like important happens.
Yeah, and it felt like this was just like, oh, okay, all the cards are on the table, like it's all on the line.
Yeah,
right here.
That's the thing, is like they keep finding more cards.
Oh
like,
yeah.
This deck just keeps getting bigger. and so
love
like
it.
I the way that I've approached 3 is that I've been playing the game, like anytime that I want to play the game and like go for gameplay, I'm like, all right, I'll do like a bunch of side quests, or I'll do stuff. And then when I'm like, you know what, I'm in the mood to advance the story, let me like hit play on this, and like in 30 minutes I'll pick the controller back up and I'll have watched a nice little episode of TV and I'll have moved on to the next section. And honestly, like, it's been really fun, like approaching it with that mindset from the get-go, and not being like, oh yeah, every cutscene is a roadblock. And it helps.
Yeah, that's such a good way of putting it. Yeah,
but it really helps that like I've going in without expectations, but 2, like every cutscene is bonkers. Like like things are happening that like I have I couldn't have predicted the ending of 2, and like the way that 2 ended also, like I feel like 1 at least, like it had its, you know, typical JRPG tropes and like twists that like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna like kill God and then I'm gonna become God and whatnot. And then like 2, like it's setting up to do the exact same thing, but then like then suddenly like it just blows the doors off of what I expect like is possible in the universe.
Okay.
And then I'm like, okay, so anything's fair game now. And then when I went into 3 and it starts calling back like specifically to 1 and 2 as these like, I mean, the setting is all like, it has like connections to the series, and it makes it seem like, this, I could see how this is the third installment in this, but like, I can't really see how the threads of this game are like literally connected to the previous, because like 2 felt completely disconnected from 1.
Yes.
And like, it just seemed like a completely different universe, and it didn't really make sense why it was like in the same like series.
Like, why isn't this just a new JRPG? Like, other than to have the name recognition,
and
like what is the connection?
Battle
other than like themes
stuff.
Yeah, like, battle mechanics and like theme, thematic stuff.
And then like with 3, what it does, and if I would say spoilers, skip ahead if you want to not know anything, which I honestly think is kind of great because it was wild to experience it firsthand. But you start and you get 3 characters that have a similar battle mechanic, even though the format and UI is closer to 2. They have like a cooldown method, an auto attack method that is exactly the same as 1.
Okay.
And then you meet 3 characters from a warring faction in this clone soldier hellscape dystopia.
Sure.
And when they join your party, they have abilities and mechanics that have cooldown and function exactly how it does in 2.
Oh,
so then you start having this really interesting interplay between, classes and characters that seem to like mirror the themes and designs from either Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And their actual gameplay mechanics reflect that.
That's really cool.
It just keeps getting more complicated and more intricate, and they add more systems, and then they add a chain attack that has its own unique system that plays more like a card game than it does a turn-based RPG.
Talk to me.
Every additional
is that when
layer.
you were getting like those? Is that when you were getting like those overkill attacks?
Yes.
And like getting because that was so cool. It's almost like it felt like almost like slot machine style. Like you're like rolling dice. Like like let me see how much, because it was like
I gotta get this meter up to 100%, but like each character has like these attacks that like only fill up the meter this much. But if I play them in this order, then it'll like max it out this much.
They'll start really feeling it. Yeah.
Do
they all have skill trees?
There are so many skill.
Oh man.
It's honestly, and like
it's like a skill network. It's not just a tree. It's like a fucking cerebral system or something. It's crazy. Like when you go to those menus, it's so much shit going on.
I really think that if you've played 1 and 2 at least a little bit, like I think that the language of those games do carry over, and so it does make it a little bit easier to digest. But like the pace of 3 is so quick, like compared to those 2.
Right.
Like you are often running so fast, and you can do like. So there is you are able to do side quests and get new classes, meet new characters that can join your party like temporarily. And I was doing all of those until I realized that I was about 20 levels higher than the main quest.
One of my favorite things to do.
And I was
plowing through,
blasting like really annihilating bosses that were supposed to have weight to them and be difficult. But I was like, man, it's a really, really well-made game that I am enjoying so much of, and I love all of the characters in it. It's really enjoyable. And,
hell yeah.
And for what it's worth, I feel like it's worth mentioning. Like I know I was saying like the menus are like a huge mess, but it's like it is really well designed. Like even like I think I even noticed like I asked you something like, hey, why are those like abilities like why do they have like a slightly different like shape around like the icon? And like that was like you were like, oh, that shape is because it's from a Xenoblade 2 character, or like maybe not character, but like a class from that game or something, and like it was just like it does seem like it's really like if you're the one playing the game, like if you just look at a screen of the menus, you're like, oh my god, this is overwhelming. But if you're actually the one playing it, it does seem like it is really well, like almost like overly designed to a degree, but like in a really like well thought out way. I don't know.
It's not like Chronicles X level of like HUD overflow or just like so much information at once, but it is. I think that this is the best game in the series, but it does kind of rely on you having played a couple hundred hours of previous games to really get the most out of it.
What if you had like, let's say I put probably like 70 into Xenoblade Chronicles and probably like 25, 30 into 2, I'd say.
I think you're golden. You could watch a video of the ending cutscenes.
Quick recap, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not super important. Like you just kind of need the main themes, and I think watching the ending of 2 would set you up real nice into expectations of what 3 could be.
Got it.
And then when 3 just starts happening, you're like, yep, I'm not going to be able to predict any bit of this. This is just going to be like, keep giving me pitches that I am not expecting for at all. And
man,
it's I'm trying to get you,
man.
Randall.
You're getting me for sure. You're getting me. I was looking at what it's going for right now. If it's been on sale by now, because it's been out for a little bit.
Yeah, a few months now, and I feel like that Nintendo's loosened the grips a little bit on the full $60 price tags. Like I feel like I even saw Breath of the Wild was just like $40, like almost like a player's choice.
Steal.
Like that was like full price.
For
it or something at like Target or wherever I was at the store and saw a price tag. But
Xenoblade.
Yeah, good to hear.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
Yeah,
I want that.
It's so fun, and there's more crafting than you could possibly imagine.
Let's go.
Yeah. Those overkill attacks too were just so cool because it does this really cool like camera shifting thing where you like kind of cycle between each character and it kind of shows like an over the shoulder like kind of Gears of War style camera, and it's like almost freezing time, but it feels like and maybe it is freezing time, but it feels like super hot style where it's like things are still like barely moving. But it was just so funny sometimes because John was fighting like these like giant like wolf dog creatures that were like literally just like laying there dead while he's like lining up like 14 more attacks in a row, and it's just like overkill.
Yeah,
like, so
that's how you get your class points.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just like getting combo points.
Overkill multiplier.
Yep. And it was just so satisfying. It's so like the literal overkill was amazing.
Hearing these children gleefully attack,
and just this like dog laying on its side with like its tongue hanging out of its mouth or whatever. It was pretty amazing to see.
Hopefully, in UK accents too, right? Still.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So, the mix, they have a good mix, right?
That was. I did find that article that explained exactly where the accents come from.
Okay.
And how it's like Southern UK in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, and then in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there was a mix of based on what island they were from or what Titan they were on. Like Morag was I think Scottish, whereas I think Welsh was Nia, and like they are very specific and deliberate with what accents they use, and like they are purposeful and carry over into 3.
That's cool.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that for sure. And I was telling John this too, and he had mentioned that he had not played Xenogears, or is it Xenosaga?
Both.
Or
I haven't played either.
Same.
Well, now I'm forgetting which one because I was thinking there was only one other one, but one of those games apparently, like one of the main characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is named Noah, and one of the main characters, I think it's Xenosaga, but it might be Xenogears, is named Noah as well. Yeah. And somebody was kind of saying like speculate. It was just like a tweet I think that I saw, but somebody was saying like I almost feel like Xenoblade 3 is like them trying to like actually make the game they wanted to make back in like, you know, with Xenosaga or Xenogears or whatever. I forget which one it was, but I thought that was just kind of interesting. I was like, oh man, I know neither of you have a ton of frame of reference for that other than just like the its like place in gaming history, but
didn't have
I
a
would
PlayStation
be curious to see.
Days.
Yeah, I never dug into the RPGs in like the PS1 era.
Yep.
Or really any era for me for that matter. But I guess another game that both Randall and I have been digging into lately, and kind of, I guess, sort of like, to me, this like really made me think of like back to when we started, like not even just the podcast, but way back to like our blog that we had way back in the day, the Time Traveling Gamers, which came up on the podcast. I'll save it for the cast recently, but like, I feel like we used to really always talk about, like, especially with the retro stuff, like it was like, man, like these retro games are great, but some of them really are held in like such a higher regard than they really deserve, at least playing them today. Maybe they earned that place in like the historical context, like they really like, you know, bridged a gap, or like, you know, they have a historical context for whatever reason, but like they just don't necessarily hold up. Or even if they do hold up, like I can go fire up Donkey Kong or any various one. Some of them are better, like playing Donkey Kong Jr. or Donkey Kong 3 and stuff. They're a little more fun, a little more expressive on the controls.
More interesting. But
a little more interesting on like what you have to even just do. But yeah, like even playing some of those, like the controls are always so rigid and so like, I don't know, just even Super Mario Brothers, the original, you know, the first Super Mario Brothers. It's like, it's like Mario's so heavy and weighty. It's like after playing Super Mario World, and you can like finesse your jump midair, like back and forth 5 times before you decide which way you want to go. I mean, like it's
let alone Mario 3 on the same console. Like, it's the stark difference there.
Like just how much more like truly like athletic you feel. But anyways, with that, you know, kind of random preamble, like Randall and I started playing a little bit of this game Donut Dodo, which is like a very like 80s inspired, you know, retro arcade game. But like at first glance, like you see it and you kind of think like, oh, here's like a Burger Time looking game, because you play as like this kind of chef main character and you're running around on these single screen levels. But right away at like first glance, I'm like, man, but this chef is running around like super smooth. Like, it just looks so buttery, and like the animations are really crisp and like expressive and whatnot. So right away I was like, oh, I want to check this game out. And like on a lot of our tweets lately, I've just been putting at the bottom like, hey, follow us, or like, follow us on Steam Curator or whatever to find more indie game gems or whatever. And because of that, we've been getting a few more games like just sent our way through that. A lot of times they're just like random and you can like politely decline, like, oh, I wish you could send a message, like say like, oh, hey, this isn't like a genre that I would normally be interested in. Because a lot of times that's really the only reason. Like, hey, I just wouldn't play a visual novel or whatever, you know?
I would.
But anyways, this Donut Dodo. But anyways, this it's like a total mixed bag of stuff. But and we honestly, we don't get a ton of stuff all that often. But like I logged on one day and like Donut Dodo was sitting in there, and it was a game that actually like popped up on my radar. Like I think I saw some tweets about it, and then it was actually because I remember it was supposed to come out. And then all of a sudden, it didn't get released. And then like everybody's like, what happened to the developer? Like, is he okay? Like, there's no word from them. And then like a couple months later, it's just like, oh, the game's out. Everything seems to be normal and whatnot. But I had kind of forgotten about it. But then when I saw it in our Steam Curator, I was like, oh, I better fire this up. And as soon as I did, I was like, yo, Randall, I think you might be into this one.
Oh, yes.
Because, it pretty much is kind of like a Donkey Kong meets Burger Time, I guess, is like the easiest way to put it. You're basically just playing these single screen platformer levels, run around collecting all the donuts on the stage and clear the stage, and it kind of like loops around or whatever. But what have you thought of it so far? I know you kind of went into this one blind with no expectations other than me just kind of like saying, hey, check this out.
Yeah, it's kind of my no social media, or at least no Twitter advantage that way. I kind of heard about this through you, and you know, I always liked these sort of just like straightforward arcade games, especially of, you know, 80s and 90s vintage and that sort of arcade heyday. You know, it's just a single screen platformer arcade game, like you said, a la Donkey Kong. Lots of ladders that you're climbing and avoiding, you know, fireballs or like toilets or, you know, frogs or random things that are trying to kill you in one hit. You know, fuck those toilets, by the way.
They're so hard because, like, the little like mouse character you can jump over if you time it just right. And again, like the expressive controls, like you really feel like you can, like, okay, you don't feel like you have to jump at the perfect pixel to clear that gap. You're like, okay, I can kind of like, as long as I'm in the zone, I can kind of clear this. Not to say that it's easy, because it gets hectic and frantic fast, and it is a single credit game. Like, yes, no continues, no anything. Like, you get your 1 credit with like 3 or 4 lives or whatever,
3 lives or so.
But you do get a 1-up every, I think it's 15,000 points, and it
something like that. Yeah,
whatever it is, I know it doesn't like go up exponentially or anything. It's just truly like every time you get that point amount, you get another 1-up. So you do have to think. The only situation is like that. I think the donuts are worth however many points, like 100 points or 25 points or whatever. Yeah. But there's like one, after you collect the first donut on a stage, then the one random donut will start being like a rainbow flashing donut. And then if you collect that donut, I think it's worth like 125 points or whatever. It's worth like about 10 times more. Yeah. And then every subsequent one, if you can keep chaining those together, it's like worth that much times 2, then times 3, then times 4. So really, at least for me, like my approach was like, okay, on this first stage that's like not easy by any means, but it's at least there's not a lot of screen wrapping going on. You can kind of just like focus on, okay, where's the next donut? I can kind of know where the toilet's going to go. I can kind of kite the enemies this way and that way. Right. And like,
because they're following you around most of the time, especially the toilet.
Yeah. That's basically just like hunting you down at all times. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, okay, let me rack up maybe an extra life or 2 on this stage by like getting, pretty much just trying to chain the whole level together if I can. Sometimes I'd have to just sacrifice and be like,
oh man, I didn't realize that strategy. So I had noticed that about the flashing donuts, because the point is you're collecting all of these little donuts in this single screen stage, and the screen wraps, so you can kind of go off the side of the stage, a la like Kid Icarus or a lot of the games of like 80s, 90s vintage, and wrap around the other side of the screen. But ultimately you're collecting all of those donuts in a screen, and then the final donut's a really big one that's kind of protected by the Donut Dodo, who's like the main bad guy character, right?
Yeah, the Donkey Kong of this game.
Yes, your Donkey Kong is a dodo. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't realize that you could chain the flashing donuts. I was grabbing them when I could, but I was just kind of grabbing anything in the area, and then this other flashing one's not too far away. Let me grab that for more points. But I didn't realize there was a chain multiplier on those points that would have made getting extra lives a hell of a lot easier, which are very nice to have in this game.
Yeah, I definitely have not beaten it, because I did get through. So apparently how the game works is like there's like a single loop, because I did get back to like I was playing the first stage again, but it just introduces like a new enemy to that stage. Okay. Like I think it was kind of like a fireball. I forget what it was now, but it moved in the same way that like a Medusa head in Castlevania moves, like kind of like that sine wave pattern. Yeah. And like it just loops back around. I think you just have to like beat all the stages again. And I got like about halfway through, and I think there's only like 4 or 5, maybe 6 stages, but like by the final stage, and like that final stage, like other than like the Dodo's lair or whatever, like you're going through like those elevator like portal doors. Like it was actually kind of reminding me a little bit of like the Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle games on that stage, like going through the different, like a little bit of puzzle. I guess you're not really getting like keys and like opening stuff up, but I don't know, it just felt so good to play a game like this where like, because like when they did add like Donkey Kong 3 and Donkey Kong Jr. and stuff to like the NES stuff on Switch, I was pretty excited, or not necessarily excited, but I think we even talked about them on the podcast, because it was just like, I never really played these games growing up, and this actually has like a little better game feel than the original Donkey Kong, because like I really do feel like the only way you can have fun, and I guess I don't know that Steve Wiebe was having fun playing Donkey Kong. I was gonna say the only way you can have fun is like getting the game like memorized, so you like know what's gonna happen. But this game really does feel like you can kind of react a little bit, even though it is so hard. Like especially when you do have to like, even on the second stage, you're like right away, you're like, if one of the donuts that you grabbed, like the flashing one, is like at the bottom left, and then the next one's at the top right, like you might have to like go up 3 or 4 ladders and then screen wrap to the other side and then jump over a spike pit and then jump over a mouse. Like it's like you got to do a lot of shit. Like you're just like, okay, I'm just going to get all the donuts on this side,
which is all I ever did,
and then go to the other side. Yeah, same here.
That would be what I would do.
Yes. Yeah. Just to survive and move on to the next stage. But then I wasn't getting those extra lives, and then I get some cheap hit, and I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, should I just restart from the beginning of this run, or should I just, like, keep going?
I was, like, just spamming the quick restart. Like, pause, quick restart, especially if you die even once on the first stage, just quick restart.
Yes, definitely if you die on the first stage. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. But it is worth mentioning, for me at least, the music was
it's
just
good.
phenomenal. Like, especially when it really caught me, I think it's the second or third stage is like a Ferris wheel stage.
Yeah.
And it kind of has like this like little lead-in track that starts, and it's kind of like this waltz, like 3/4 kind of rhythm. And I was like, it's kind of cool, but I was like, it almost sounds like an underwater kind of song, like the way it starts. But then, like, as soon as like the stage like starts, it's like got this like little ramp up, like bam, 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 and like kind of kicks in. And I was like,
a lot of flair.
Oh man, it's got so much energy. The music and just like the pixel art, the animation, like
very vibrant.
It just got like a couple, very vibrant, like really rainbowy. Like even the way the donut like kind of flashes, like even not just the one that gives you the combo, but like the main donut, and just some really cool like dynamic interactive levels, like, and really just solid tight controls. Again, like I was saying at the top, it just feels so good to play like a retro arcade game that doesn't have the retro rigid frustrations. Like for me, that was like really the main thing. Just like, it feels so good to just like play a game mindlessly like this. Number one, and not actually be pumping quarters into the machine. Yeah. And number two, like it actually feels good and fair, and I can like get better at it quickly. And instead literally of like memorizing.
All you're doing as the main character, the chef guy, you can jump and you can move and you can climb ladders with your, control stick. Like there's no other button. There's no fireball or throw your hammer.
No
or whatever.
Power-ups, no anything like that. Yeah.
Nope.
And it is where when you go up the ladders, like up or down, like as soon as you go up or down, you go like all the way down.
Yeah, you're zooming.
Like, it's such a speedy, zippy game.
Yeah.
And I guess to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum for like one of the slowest games I've ever played, but I don't mean that in a bad way.
Hell no.
Because I have been playing, and Randall was saying he talked about this one way back on like episode 28. It 28, was right or
28.
28 of the podcast. So long, kind of probably right around the time that John joined the podcast. On
he was
a
there.
Regular basis.
Yep.
But I started playing through the Ninja Saviors, the Warriors Returns, and I shouldn't say started playing through. I actually beat the whole game the other day. I did a stream and played like the first like 3 or 4 levels, and like for whatever reason, I mean, how I typically game, how I'm always talking about, I'm just bouncing around from game to game to game and like playing halfway through the game. But for whatever reason, I popped this in, and we'll end up probably talking about Pocky and Rocky down the line. This is from the same studio that did the Wild Guns like reboot remake,
which is awesome.
They just did the Pocky and Rocky reboot remake, and I picked that up, and as soon as I started playing it, I was like, man, this is just as good as Wild Guns. And I was like, I know Randall was gushing about Ninja Saviors. I was like, I got to get it while it's still readily available, and I've not been disappointed. Like I said, right off the top, it did like part of the reason I didn't grab it right off the bat, even after your glowing like praise for it, was just like it does look really slow. Like you see any gameplay clips, like it's a gorgeous looking game, but even by like beat 'em up standards, it's like, man, it's like slow motion.
Yeah,
and then, like,
it is.
I had posted a clip of it, and somebody had made a comment and said like, oh, I would check this game out, and like, but that like the whole game being on like a single plane, whereas like you know how most beat 'em ups have that kind of 3D like pseudo 3D like depth, like Turtles in Time or the new Turtles game or whatever. But I immediately replied, I was like, I thought that seeing the game in action, especially with the slow pace, but playing the game, I feel like that adds so much depth to the combat, because you're constantly having to think of like, okay, where are there more enemies? Am I heavier loaded on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen? And obviously, depending on which of the 3 characters you are, and you have 3 characters to pick from, you got to go with the ninja. I tried all 3
ninja rules
extensively, but like ninja, at first I didn't like it all because you can't jump, but you have this like jetpack booster that like just like darts you across the screen. So you do get to feel kind of quick in those moments or whatever, but very heavy still. And you just like dart across the screen. But the whole time while I was playing this game, both on the stream, I think I said it like 10 times during the stream, but like playing through the game the other day and like beating the whole game, I used like 1,000,000 continues.
Yes, whatever.
Yeah, and I really like how it works. Like you can, if you're going for like trying to get your like time trial score, like obviously if you're trying to beat the whole game, and you can do each individual level as you beat them, you can play like those time trials or whatever individually. But I really like how the checkpoint system, like it doesn't boot you back to the start of each stage. Like there are like boss checkpoints or midway checkpoints. Like it was part of why I actually finished the game, because normally a game like this I would be like, I'm sure if I was playing the retro version I'd be like, oh my God, I can't beat this part and just probably give up at some point.
Right.
But I was just like, oh, this just like, it feels fair. Like I never feel like I'm like hitting a brick wall. There were a couple bosses that gave me a really hard time.
Oh yeah.
Because they all like kind of throw swarms of enemies at you at the same time.
Always. Yes.
But to finish that thought, why I was thinking like why Randall, like probably, or I mean, a multitude of reasons. I mean, there's gorgeous pixel art. It's got the retro beat 'em up action, but it really, really feels like those old school like N64 wrestling games when it comes to the combat.
Yep.
You're like getting right up in enemies' faces and like grappling, and you kind of auto grapple. Like when you walk up close to an enemy, you just like literally like fucking grab them by the throat.
Hell yeah.
And like hold them up in the air. And then you can do so many different moves. Like if you hold down up, you do like this spin move and like throw them kind of upwards.
Which I use
or if you
all
like
the time.
Hold down, you like do like a backbreaker over your knee. And like if you just press like forward, you just like slam them on the ground. But you can like really clear waves of enemies, and you really start to learn like, oh, these enemies only take one hit. So I can like grab this guy, do the spin move, and like chuck them towards that batch of enemies. They'll all get killed by, even if like an enemy throws you, or you know that like everybody takes damage from everything. It's really cool.
Yes.
In that regard. But like you just get it gets really like strategic, the combat. Like you're constantly like, turning around and like just thinking about your positioning, and like every character has such a diverse move set, like almost like, you know how like Smash Brothers has like every character has like an up B, a down B, a left B kind of, or side B, whatever. It's kind of like that. Like even like there were moves I was learning like all the way up until the end of the game. I was like, oh man, I didn't realize it, like, cause you can kind of, if you don't press left or right when you do like the jetpack dash with the ninja, you kind of like do this little burst in the air. And then if you press attack real quick, you do kind of like almost do like an uppercut, or I guess you don't really do like a fist thing, but you just like launch yourself in the air with these jetpacks and like, and yeah, you can do this like elbow drop if you hold down and press attack or jump or whatever. Like, it's just so cool. And like after I beat the game, I unlocked a new character, which I think is something that was again added to this like reboot remake. And it's just so cool. Like if you're gonna do a remake or whatever of a game, like this is the way to do it, because it's just so cool to like have all these quality of life features, all the cool like new features. Like Pocky and Rocky does this a little bit too, but just like the way they do the visuals, like where you can see through stuff in the foreground, and they do that like square pixelated thing. Yeah. Oh, it's such a cool effect, and like, I don't know, breathing life into these games that like not only are somewhat forgotten, but they're super rare, like as far as like the actual retro cartridges, all three of these games.
All of them.
It's really cool to be able to be like, oh, I can get this version on Switch for $35 or whatever. Not that that's cheap, but like,
it's
compared to what they cost on
physical copy,
like multiple hundreds of dollars
of the cost. I would
those are like $200-$300 easy. Then that's like last time I checked, which is a long time ago.
Correct.
But on top of that, they truly are better versions. It's not just like, oh, this is a more convenient way to play. No, it's like these are truly like,
they're legit widescreen. The graphics were redone.
Like they remade the games, but like as faithfully as you could possibly do it, but while also adding a ton of new stuff that feels like it should have been in the game all along. Like
it's a director's cut in the best way, essentially.
Yeah, that director's cut. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yes. It's incredible. Ninja Saviors, I still think is incredible. And like, I listened to episode 28 and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. This game rules, Randall. I want to play that game again. Like the game, it's so good. Everything about Ninja Saviors is phenomenal. And the word I would use, you know, you could say it's slow. You know, you could pan the fact that it's single pane. I would say it's deliberate. This game is very deliberate in its gameplay design. Yeah. And because it's single plane, it plays more like a fighting game. You know, and you have this crazy moveset, and it's not fluff that you have all these options. They all serve a purpose in your gameplay, and it just feels so good. Like there aren't that many beat 'em ups that are on the single plane, but man, this has got to be one of the very best.
I'd be very curious to see how it feels playing multiplayer, because I know you can play two players, and I was trying, when DJ was over the other day, he was like, we should finish off Box Boy and Box Girl and Strikey Sisters. We played a few other things, I think, too, but I was kind of trying to push him into playing it, because I really wanted to see how it would feel two players. Like, number one, what would change? Like, will they throw more enemies at you or whatever? Or whatnot, but I really, deliberate's the perfect word. You got to really think about like, okay, as soon as I kill this enemy, I got to turn around quick. And like, the boss battles just you really had to like use the minions to like, like almost in the same way that like the battle where you're like got to throw the foot soldiers like at Shredder, but in a totally different way. You're like using them to kind of like clear the hordes away, or like even throw them into like the giant enemies that are kind of coming in from the sides, or like the extra like
especially when you're playing
arms.
as ninja, like a lot of regular ass enemies are just like items or weapons that like if you don't use them fast enough are going to hurt you. Like that's basically how it plays. And it's so satisfying.
Yeah, I just had a complete blast. Like again, I kept thinking like, am I going to beat this game? And then I'd be like, no, I'm probably going to call it after this. And then I kept like, every time I saw the continue screen, I'm just like, no, I got to keep going. I can't quit here. And like, it's been a long time since I've been sucked into a game like that where I'm like, I got to see this through. And like, let alone a retro one that's kicking my ass. It's been a while.
I'm glad that you love it.
Felt good. Yeah, I'm really glad I picked it up. Really glad I own that trilogy of games. And I'm really looking forward to both. I need to finish Pocky and Rocky as well. I think we both have probably played about the same amount, I would wager.
Yep.
I had basically a sitting and a half with it, but really have enjoyed it so far, and can say that it's probably going to get that same level of praise, at least from me, but I'll have to play more. But we'll save that for another time. But why don't we kick it over to Randall and what you've been digging into as of late?
So it's September.
It's that time again. It's that time of year.
There's this video game you might have heard of. It's called NBA, National Basketball Association 2K series, and I'm on 2K23 now.
So this is the new one. In my head, I was like, is this the new one?
This is in fact the new one. Yes, I buy the new one every single year at this point since 2K18. So, we got a good streak going these days. So
Speaking of games that should just have like a season pass,
Well, yeah, probably. That's fair. Although they have, I'll give them credit. It's not just a roster update.
They do put a lot of effort into these games.
They
no
do.
doubt about it.
And it is truly a basketball sim. And and I've also really gotten into the WNBA over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Yes, which condolences to you, John, for your Chicago Sky.
And to you for the Seattle Storm. I was really looking forward to that matchup.
Me
too. The showdown, I know. Yeah, I thought that was almost a done deal.
This is probably long. By the time this comes out, it's absolutely long since. But the Aces have not closed it out tonight.
That's a shock.
The Sun decided that they were going to score 1 million points tonight.
They would have to, because the Aces are freaking Terminators. That team is stacked.
Is doing bonker. Not.
If the Sky had come through, I was definitely going to text you, John, and be like, yeah, just watch out, because here comes the freight train for you. I'm sorry.
The Aces are Becky Hammond's. I'm hoping she's getting her championship.
Yeah, she will. Unfortunately, I don't see the Connecticut Sun winning that series.
I know. The Aces are really... Anyway.
Yeah,
you have 4
video games. 4 or 5 All-Stars. Yes, but that's... Yeah. Anyway, so we're talking about NBA 2K23, which includes the WNBA, all that to say.
I was going to say, that's so cool, too, because that's how I learned a lot of players. When I was really into hockey, playing the NHL, whatever, that's how I learned who a lot of the players were that weren't like the superstars,
Yes, and me the same way. That's always been a factor of why I was able to get into, both sides of basketball and know the players and teams so quickly is big thanks to the 2K series, really.
Yeah.
But, they've every year they do, what typically has always kind of caught me and made me waste a whole bunch of time. I guess it's not time wasted if I like it, yada, yada, but it's the my GM mode. And it's basically just spreadsheets on my TV, on my 4K TV. So I didn't do that yet this year. What I did do instead was go into the My Career mode, which is kind of like the main thing that they tend to show in trailers or push at the forefront is this single player campaign where you are this up and coming basketball player trying to break into the NBA. I have never played one of those modes before, despite owning so many versions. It's just never been the thing that appealed to me on the front side. But this time, like, you know what? No, like I know I'm going to pre-order this. Let's just play the silly story mode. I know it's going to be a lot of like cringy stuff and a lot of really weird and awkward like
Jake from State Farm, like just like in 4K.
Yeah, it's not great.
No, is it really on that level?
Oh
like he's actually in it.
Yes.
Yep. Jake from State Farm's there.
You know what? Good for him.
I kind of like that guy.
Yeah,
to me, he just seems like a likable guy.
I hope he's getting paid. Good God.
He better be getting paid.
He better be getting residuals from this.
Like, he's never going to be able to be like a normal guy ever. He's always going to be Jake from State Farm from now for forevermore, you know?
Yeah. But also, why is he in this game?
Yeah, that is
money.
Crazy.
The answer is money.
Jeez, does that at least take away from some of the microtransactions?
Oh, no.
They just gave the money to Jake up front.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? No, although generally I feel like the last 2 cycles or so, 2-3 cycles, they've eased off of that microtransaction stuff just a bit because they've gotten so much pushback over the years. But it's still definitely there, and it's not far under the surface. You know, thankfully, I pre-ordered one of the better versions of it that came with League Pass, which I'm also interested in, and you know they've got me cornered now.
Wait, like literally NBA League Pass?
Correct. Yeah.
God damn it.
Oh, like the cable package or whatever.
Like
it is?
it's like its own separate like service essentially.
Like you get all the games essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually an awesome
deal. God
damn
it. Now that actually is kind of like if that's to justify a yearly purchase of a game like that, give you NFL Sunday ticket or whatever you want to get.
Effectively.
Like that kind of works.
Yeah.
Okay, that I can get down with.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that came with like pre-order bonuses on top of that it gives you a lot of the VC, the virtual currency that, you know, to get to like, you know, take care of those, sand out those sharp edges a little bit because they're giving you some of that on the front side for better or worse. So, you know, I'm playing that my career mode. I made myself, but he's, you know, 6'9" with a huge wingspan, of course. Because ultimately
he's got to be able to dunk.
Yes. I'm a sicko that always, you know, for whatever reason, and I think John has this a bit too, gravitate towards some of like the bigger players that always tend to be interesting, especially if they're the dynamic and they can do more than just dunk or sit in the paint, right? Like that's like where the basketball magic can come into play.
Rebounds are what wins games. Come on.
True. And defense, baby.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
My power forward is very good at defense and rebounding and 3-point shooting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice. 3 and D. Oh,
yeah, that's right.
There we go.
So, but you're playing this from like you're only in control of that character for the whole game. Okay.
Which is very different too, and but it's really fascinating because I got used to controlling the whole team, which has its own facets because that's full control. When I'm passing the ball, I'm now taking control of the character the ball was passed to, where that's not the case here. You know, and there is like a takeover mode, and I don't know if that's been in previous my career where like if you're doing well enough in the game and you're hitting certain stats and you're literally getting a letter grade that's changing up and down based on turnovers or an assist or a fast break, or, you know, there's skill trees. And if you upgrade those skill trees in a certain way and you hit those marks that are in those skill trees, you know, your grade is improving during the game or whatever. And if you hit a certain level of improvement, it's the team takeover. And then for a very short amount of time, you can control the whole team, but your player's still there and being graded. So, you know, for the most part, it's just your player you're controlling, but there are circumstances where you can do that full team takeover. I did the Pistons because Seattle's team was stolen, but, you know, still I grew up with the Pistons, so, you know, I can help them out in the meantime.
Plus, they're breaking out those turquoise jerseys again. So.
They are. Yeah. You got the horse turquoise jersey from
looking
Grant Hill
good.
era.
I love that logo. Yeah.
And Jerry Stackhouse and such.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it plays well. You know, I can't say it's too like starkly different from 2K22 in the overall play, but it feels right to me, and I'm playing it every night for better or worse at this point, you know, and there's daily bonuses and weekly bonuses and all the evil things that come with online games that way, of course.
Yeah. But it feels good to have a game like that when it is like your daily routine game. Like when I was playing Stardew Valley on that kind of habitual schedule. Like, it was just nice to, like, that's just like, I wasn't sitting there indecisively trying to pick a game to play. I just like picked up my Switch and played Stardew and enjoyed myself instead of like being like, what do I want to play?
Stress just like melting away because you're doing your routine and like playing the thing that like just gives you dopamine.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's that simple, you know. And I pay the piper every year for that privilege with new rosters, I guess, to some degree.
Yeah, because you got to get KD with a rating of 96 as opposed to 99. And then
a little more realistic.
Oh, no, he gets furious.
Oh, my God. I know. The 2K ratings itself is like a whole event when that comes out, right?
It's almost like its own like NBA draft. It's the 2K ratings announcements.
Oh, man, can you imagine being in charge of that, but like also trying to like slip your own bias in and just being like, Al Horford is rated too low.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's underrated. Let's give him a boost in, his vertical leap.
God. There's so many players like I listen to a lot of actually care.
What's that?
There's so many players that like play these games and actually care about their
they're
own
like diehard.
Yeah.
Big time. It means a lot to all these professional players. Yeah, it's a major factor in how they judge themselves against their competition. There's no
and then
doubt
they use it as motivation for MVP the next season. 2K rated me too low.
Yep.
It's funny because I used to, like, when me and my brother, we played a lot of like the hockey games growing up, and I would always think like, it's got to be so cool to like just like see yourself in a video game. Like, how cool is that? But like, when you're actually that person, you're just sitting there looking at your stats like, I'm only rated 68? What the hell is this, man? You know? It's just funny how the perspective changes.
If I was a bench player, I would love it because then I'd just be like, oh yeah, there are people playing with me specifically as a handicap. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Watch me wave my towel on the bench. Watch me. But you can actually face scan too. That's a feature in this one at the very least. So I scanned my face in, although it looks hella awkward.
Yeah.
Like my Uncanny Valley style?
My cheeks are like way out like this. And I'm like, I'm going to leave that. That's fine. That's totally good. You know, let's play it that way.
That's cool though. How does it feel like when you're playing in a game as like yourself in the career mode? Like, how does it feel like camera angle wise? Like, does it like follow you like kind of over the shoulder style, or like is it still kind of the same gameplay wise? But
it feels like I guess in football when they'd have that like zip camera thing that's like above the field and like moving dynamically. It kind of feels like that in like a third person perspective where it's kind of zooming around you as if there's like this like radius around your person, and it's just like in this 3D space. It's kind of as you're moving around the arc, you know, on offense and you're moving around, it's kind of the camera's doing its own dynamic thing to catch different angles of you on the court to make sure you can see the other players around you and kind of what's going on in the action. It's pretty wild to play it that way. It's totally different than like when I play regular 2K, I got a pretty zoomed out like traditional 2K view to see everything, and it's not quite that way when you're just
what is that, by the way? Because I've played basketball games both ways, where it's like the sideways, like almost like football style view, where it's like, you know, you can just see the whole court. And I've also played games that do it more like where it's like turned, where you're like running, you know, up and down the court essentially. Like you're running down to play defense and up to play offense, where like instead of going right to left.
Yeah, that's typically how I play 2K, is that kind of really zoomed out above, as if like the camera's sitting on the bottom of the like jumbotron in the stadium basically, and like and then it just flips between, you know, offense and defense for your perspective of like that's, you know, the basket and the, you know, that side of the court, you know. But
so it actually flips on like possessions, or it flips just
like if you lose the ball on offense, the camera would flip over to
interesting.
Yeah, when you're playing on defense. So yeah.
That's
at least
cool.
in
I like that.
The camera angle that I had, you know, that way. But yeah,
I'm sure they have a ton of options. Because in like because I used to play like NBA Live 99 on Nintendo 64 all the time, and even that game had a bunch of different camera options. I feel like different perspectives and stuff. So
good
old player 99 before Michael Jordan would put himself in the games.
Yeah, because he wouldn't be part of like the National Basketball Association, like Players Association.
I think that's what it was. Yeah,
he had his own,
he was like
separately.
only. Yeah, he was only in video games like after he retired, I believe.
Yeah, because he wasn't in
mistaken.
NBA Jam. He wasn't in a lot of those, yearly series either.
Yeah, I remember going like, "Oh, I'm going right to the Bulls," and you're like, Pippen and Luke Longley. Why are these the two? Or like Horace Grant?
Yeah,
no, that was the Magic.
Horace
still,
Grant.
Like, why are these the two
he had
guys?
glasses.
Yeah,
and as a small boy.
Yeah,
and they were like blue too. They were like cool goggles. Like they weren't like, I don't know. I feel like I was like, hey, likable guy.
Yeah, he's on a lot of winning teams. That Horace Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you're still chipping away at both Elden Ring and the basketball situation, but I feel like it's been a while since we've had some basketball talk, but I feel like well worth it with that NBA League Pass.
Yeah,
almost
granted,
a no-brainer.
I had to pay for a more expensive version of that game to achieve to get.
But League Pass is expensive.
League Pass is probably over $100, right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it is.
Like if you're even a moderate basketball fan that's going to play the game and watch a few games here and there, like honestly, I feel like that's just like a no-brainer.
And for Tina and I, like we watch a lot of basketball at this point, so it was kind of a no-brainer to
well,
get
that's
that
awesome.
version. Yeah.
Well, I remember you saying before in the past that you would kind of like just catch up on like the recap stuff after the fact and like watch like, the YouTube stuff. And like, so now you can, hey, let's actually watch that game instead of catching up on it later, like that's, oh man, that's like a game. Like talk about like a good cross promotion there on their behalf. I'm sitting here man, I'm about to buy that game so I can watch basketball. I don't even really like, I like basketball, but I'm not like a fan really. And I'm sitting here like, maybe I should get that.
I know. And I think they only did it for pre-orders too. I don't think you can even buy it that way in that bundle anymore. If I remember correctly.
That's definitely a good incentive for sure.
Yeah. I'm like, that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck yeah.
I'll keep playing it. So obviously I will talk about it more on this podcast.
Yeah. We'll get some more basketball updates, I'm sure. But yeah, I think we can probably wrap up the video games chat there this week. And as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. I think that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else to ramble about today. So nice. We can wrap it up there. And until next week, we'll catch you then and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Where is East Lansing located?
It's kind of like
central of it's kind of like in the middle of the mid, if I like south. It's like a little bit more south than the middle, I guess, but like
and like a little north of Detroit, but like kind of right in the middle. I
was like I actually have no idea where Michigan and Michigan State are like located.
Ann Arbor is a cool town. Ann Arbor.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Now, I know where Ann Arbor is.
That's one of the areas I want to look around. Like, I don't think I would be able to like live in Ann Arbor proper, but like, and I don't even think I would necessarily want to, although it's one of those college towns that doesn't feel like a college town.
No, really. It's beautiful. It's really
does
pretty.
on like game day. Like if you're there on a Michigan football game day, it's like, oh God, get me out of here. But like
between Ann Arbor and like Kalamazoo.
Yeah.
Is that like a decent place?
Kalamazoo, like the west side of the state is pretty cool. It's a little bit more laid back, I would say.
Yeah,
and a little bit more
progressive,
I would also say, on average.
I get that vibe too.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Battle
I didn't
Creek.
get to spend much time there comparatively, but
yeah, same here. Mostly just passing through, but yeah, every time I pull off, or like all those like wineries kind of up on like the
Isn't
west
that where,
side of the state.
Especially
is Kalamazoo where Bell's is?
Yeah. Or at least one of their main facilities.
Yeah,
I think they have a couple now, but yeah, I think they're like first where they started was there.
Yep.
Battle Creek's like where Kellogg, the cereal company, is located.
Gotcha.
Yep.
There's lots of places.
Yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to like I'm dreading moving and all that stuff, but I'm looking forward to whatever.
The process of moving sucks, but the potential of finding a place that's nice is good.
Well, the process of moving and leaving and just the whole combination of everything. But it's not that far away. It won't be that hard to come and see people. Like I'm already like, okay, Glenn's gonna be back in town around Thanksgiving. I'm gonna try to make a trip then. Like, just try to. Yeah, it's not that far, especially like you were saying, if I can get a place that's like split some of that distance off, how far it is to my parents' place, shave an hour off and be like, oh, it's like a 3.5 hour drive. Nice.
Yeah.
That's nothing.